Welcome to our weekly health news update here at Al Jazeera English. I'm Fahim Mahim. The top story of the week is, of course, the upcoming Montreal World Health Organization conference, taking place from March 23rd to the 25th. This year's theme is refugee health. Officials at the MonWHO have stated that they hope that delegates will succeed in putting together a charter for refugee rights, which would be a first in the world of international institutions. After a heated debate with Israel, the Jordanian delegate spoke with Al Jazeera to address Palestinian refugees. Jordan and Saudi Arabia expressed concerns on Europe's implication in the region. Al Jazeera has the story.
Hi, this is Rameez Imtiaz with Al Jazeera News. I'm here with Jordan representative Zain, and we're here to discuss some of the interesting developments on the first day of the MonWHO summit. So the first thing I want to talk to you about, and this happened right away when the summit started, was this targeting of Israel or so that representative claimed. You called out Israel a fair number of times, so what issues do you have with Israel?
I think you're construing it the wrong way. It's not so much being critical of Israel as it is being critical of Israel's flawed policies. Ever since the signing of the peace treaty in 1990, we have maintained these good relations. That being said, we do believe that some of the policies that Israel has are fundamentally flawed. They simply are not doing enough for Palestinian refugees.
You and Saudi Arabia were both simultaneously criticizing the European countries for not doing enough.
Yeah.
And so where do you think they can help? Do you mean financially supporting you, or do you mean taking on more refugees? Explain that a bit more.
Both. I think that the European countries can take refugees as well. They can also provide expertise. They also have financial resources. They can apply pressure to different NGOs to provide services. They can apply pressure to pharmaceutical companies to address the needs of the Palestinian refugees. Jordan believes that the needs of the Palestinian refugees have been ignored for far too long.
Well, the biggest problem here is once you tell this to the European countries, they're going to respond with that, okay, there's a recession happening right now. We've seen Greece is struggling, we know Spain is struggling economically, so that is going to be the rebuttal. Where do you think you can respond, or how do you think you can respond to this?
I think it's important to realize that this is a global recession. It's not fair to say that this has only impacted Europe.
Well, you probably mean not just financially, but try to pressurize the other countries to support.
They have the technical expertise, they have the pressure, they have the incentives that they can provide to other countries.
Okay, so this is Rameez Imtiaz with the Jordan representatives, and he's basically just trying to say that Europe needs to step up and put more pressure on the countries to help the Palestinian refugee cause, and on top of that to support Middle Eastern countries and get them back on track, get them helping. And that's all from Al Jazeera. Thank you.
Though the Israeli delegate had no comment for Al Jazeera, the New York Times was able to interview him. He expressed hopes that the international community can shift the discussion from Palestine to other refugee health issues.
Now let's hear from Al Jazeera.
Hi, this is Rameez Imtiaz from Al Jazeera News. I'm here with Saudi Arabia delegate Nick. We're going to be discussing some of the interesting developments that have happened in the first 2 days. Firstly, there's been a talk from the Europe bloc about rejecting aid to Syria. Now, what impact do you think this will have on the Middle East, and in particular about the stability of the region?
Well, it's going to have a very negative impact on Saudi Arabia and as well the Middle East generally. I disagreed with that decision. I thought that Europe actually should be providing more expertise to Syria in this time.
You said negative impact. You didn't really elaborate on that. Can you describe what do you mean by negative impact?
Well, the region is very destabilized right now, and we feel that if the European Union does not step in, that instability is going to continue. And by instability, I mean these very large numbers of refugees inside a country, Turkey, creating problems with the Turkey government. Turkey doesn't want to devote resources to these people, so that's going to harbor a little bit of hatred between Turkey citizens and Syrian refugees.
By European Union helping, do you mean confrontation in Syria, like the one that was in Libya?
No, we're not advocating for military interventionism. We're advocating for more expertise from Europe to Turkey.
We go now to Al Jazeera.
Chaos breaks out in day 2 of the European bloc. With 3 distinctive resolutions being discussed, it's hard to imagine how Europe will come together to have one concise resolution. Serbia and Israel have called for a resolution that incorporates 3 steps. Pakistan and Iran have called for another one that stresses maternity health. And while the third one is still in development, it's clear that Saudi Arabia is unhappy with the previous 2. I went inside the Europe bloc to interview various delegates and find out exactly how they feel about the resolution process and where they see the process headed. Pakistan has been instrumental in introducing a resolution so far. What are some of the strengths and weaknesses you see of your resolution?
There are a few things that we're working on possible amendments. We also have support of GSK and possibly other and Oxfam, and we are still talking to MSF and a couple of other NGOs.
I'm here with the Serbian delegate. Now, Serbia and Israel have formed a partnership of some sort, and they've decided to introduce a new resolution. However, in speaking with the Pakistani delegate before, she's called your resolution short-sighted, confusing, and trying to incorporate too many things at once. How do you respond to this criticism?
Well, first of all, I'd also like to clarify that it's not just Israel and myself, it's also including Norway, Spain, and France. They're all sponsors. Their opinion of our resolution is coming from the not complete understanding of the resolution. For example, Iran, who is also working with Pakistan, seemed to be very confused when we were talking about a cap on the Dublin Convention.
And what is your opinion on Pakistan's resolution and Iran's they're doing a joint resolution? What is your opinion on?
Their resolution is similar to ours. I feel that they don't have as much planning for the future. They don't have as much of a plan, and I'm not sure how long they intend to rely on NGOs for funding.
With so many personalities, so many resolutions on the table, how is Europe going to come together to have a concise decision? It just seems impossible, right?
Yeah, right now there's a lot of conflict.
I spoke with the Saudi Arabian delegate on why he chose to support both resolutions. He said supporting both resolutions was necessary as it incorporated aspects that were complementary to one another. However, when I asked him why he didn't try to persuade both groups to come together and make one common resolution, he had no answer. This is Rameez Imtiaz, Al Jazeera, Montreal. Iran and Israel have been in constant conflict for the entire MonWHO conference. After various denials, I was finally able to obtain an interview with the Israeli delegate to find out whether the regional tensions between the two countries are compromising every other country's ability to form more consensus on the resolutions.
In these resolutions, the comments that was made by Iran, those genocidically anti-Semitic comments have really impacted our resolutions. It's a duck. But this duck is a nuclear duck. The security of the nation of Israel comes first. And they are compromising the security by their comments, by their genocidically anti-Semitic comments. If we go on with Iran's actions, we're going to see another Holocaust. This can't happen.
What would you say to other countries who believe that Iran's nuclear program is only for peaceful purposes?
Those other countries are simply don't see the duck. The duck is there.
Under international law, you are allowed to have a nuclear program for peaceful.
But they're not. There is doubts about their programs. There's a strong indications that they didn't even allow they didn't allow the observers to go inside the nuclear programs. What is that?
The same doubt was there for Iraq when Iraq got invaded. Did they find weapons of mass destruction?
That is completely irrelevant to this matter. So
that is very relevant. That's what they said about Iraq, and that's before they invaded.
What was wrong with the invasion of Iraq?
There was no weapons of mass destruction.
A dictator came down and a peaceful democratic state has been established. And the US is already out of there.
Do not use the word peaceful with Iraq.
This is completely a biased interview. I do not understand Al Jazeera. Then that is why many times I have denied. Your questions are completely biased toward Iran. I do not know how the government of Iran is funding you, but this is completely ridiculous. I'm leaving this conversation.
That's all for this week's update. We'll be back next week with more health-related news.
Brought to you by MonWHO Media.